Friday, everyone. Your real worth isn't defined by your net worth. What makes you valuable is how you use what you have been given. All of us have gifts. Make sure you're making the most of yours. Have an amazing Friday.
It is now the bottom of the hour. I'm excited to welcome Nancy Matthews to our program today. Nancy is an author of a book. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel for you guys. There it is, The One Philosophy. I want to talk to Nancy not only about the re-release of the book, but also what it's been like for her to share the message with all of you guys. Nancy, great to have you on with us.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here.
When you do nothing, nothing happens. Best time to take action is now.
This is the time to work on you and your business.
So I've created a group,
An online academy for professionals and entrepreneurs. Power Partners will help you
to start helping yourself.
Helped me change my life and my business.
Not a Toastmasters, it's not a BNI, it's not any of these, but it is. So it's all this stuff in one place.
Get the results that you deserve right now. So what are you waiting for? Let's make it happen.
see you in Power Partners.
Good morning, bonjour, ni hao, hola, buongiorno, bienvenue, wan ying, bienvenidos, benvenuta, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each week, I get the amazing opportunity to take you on a journey to places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get the magnificent moment to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. The whole history of mankind revolves around gemstones and precious metals, either directly or indirectly. Stories of kings and queens and continents and governments and great fortunes and great losses. So what I do is I take those stories and I use them as a template, as a bridge, as an inception point to get you to begin to discover the value of your own stories. I say that every week. Discover the value of your own stories. And I say that at the beginning and I say that at the end of the show because I need you to understand the power of stories. There is nothing more powerful on earth than a story. Now, of course, my Christian friends are saying, well, Barry, what about God? And think about it. How did you learn about God? How did you begin to understand the value, the power, the magnificence of God? Someone told you a story. Either you read it in the Bible book, probably someone told you what God did for you, for them in their lives. And you heard that story. And you carry that story. And that story has grown over time. Because that's what stories do. Last week, I was watching some of the excerpts from Game of Thrones. I finally watched the last episodes. Those of you who are great GOT fans, sorry, it took me a while to get there. And the last episode where Tyrion is captured and really ready to be killed, and they asked him, did he want to be king? And he was like, no, I don't want to be king. And those of you who know his character knows the way he speaks. But what struck me was when they said, what you need, you don't need, as he called himself, an imp, a dwarf. You don't need a dwarf. You don't need a man that has done all these things. What you need is someone who has a story. He said that stories, what brings people together? Armies? No. Flags? No. Religions? No. He said a story. A story, quote, he said, a story is the most powerful thing on the planet. And when you think about it, and the thing that amazes me each and every time I study gemology is that gemology is the quintessential example of stories. When you consider how over the tens of thousands of years of human history, man can't agree on anything. We have, as most of you know, I teach science and history all around the world, including China. And when you study history, you realize that mankind has fought about everything. But you know the one thing that mankind has never really fought over? They fought for, but they never fought over the value of gemstones. So what we're going to do today is talk about truly a perfect example of not only gemology, but the power of stories. Barbara, bring up my screen for me, please. So I entitled this episode is, why is Jade called the Stone of Heaven? And the reason why I named that is because when I first started in gemology and I got up to the part of Jade, the first book that I was introduced to was this book called The Stone of Heaven, written by Adrian Levy and Kathy Scott Clark. And the first thing that struck me about that title was The Stone of Heaven. That seemed like a bit much to me. When I thought about Jade, I thought about it like the way other people think about it, just this little green disc. And I actually had one because I just liked the color green. I liked the way it felt on me. So when I saw that title, The Stone of Heaven, it just didn't make sense to me. What we're going to talk about today, when you begin to understand Jade, you have to understand that Jade has been around humankind from the beginning. I'm talking about they have pieces. I've literally seen pieces and held pieces in my hand that were at least 10,000 years old. 10,000 years old. We're talking about a gemstone that is known throughout the world. In fact, my first question is when I began to study and understand how jade is revered, not only just in Asia, in China, in Asian cultures, in China and Japan, but jade is revered, is worshipped. It's highly valued in Asia, in Australia, in India, in Africa, in Europe, all through Central and in South America, even in Pacific Islands. The Maori people had the same relationship with jade as the people in China did. And when I started thinking about that, I started saying to myself, what is it about jade? What is it about a gemstone that can have that ubiquitous power all over the planet? And this is before the internet. This is before electro examination, X-ray examination. This is before chemicals and all these different things. These people, cultures throughout the world, highly value this thing that we call jade. And what's so amazing about that, once you really start thinking about it, think about how the fact that this is a gemstone that not only was highly valued, that's highly valued now, but it still has that value that it had 10,000 years ago. I have children that I teach in Beijing, in Shanghai. One young lady in particular, she told me when I talked about jade with her, she said, Professor Barry, I get jade. My grandmother has been giving me jade bracelets since she was 4. And she said, and I told her put one on, and it was big for her. And I'm thinking, why did your grandma? She said, my grandmother always gets me a bigger bracelet because she wants me to be able to wear it forever. And she's 12 now. So as I began to create and think about and research for this program, I thought back to that fateful day when I said, why is this stone? This is a wonderful book if you want to really read about just what jade does and the search for jade. When I began to think about why is this gemstone called the stone of heaven, not just then, today. Excuse me. Jade, remember the Ginsu knife? Well, jade is the original Ginsu knife. Jade is not just a gemstone. Jade is not just a spiritual jade. Jade had function. Unlike any other gemstone, jade was used by Neolithic. Neolithic, that means the Neolithic period. If you've got your eighth grade history, Neolithic man, we're talking about 9,000, 10,000 years ago. We're talking about just from the coming when we were just beginning to come out of the age of cavemen. That's what Neolithic man, and they use gemstones. They use jade as axes, as carving tools. When you move up in history, jade was used for weapons. It was used for spears. It was used for daggers. Emperors would bury themselves in jade because they believed in the power of what this gemstone was, what they felt when they held this gemstone. It was the last emperor of China who actually was the one who said that this is the stone of heaven. How many thousands of years ago was that? And yet that story, that understanding, that belief still exists. In Asian cultures, not only just then, but now, and we know, or at least I've taught you in this program, that as much as Americans or even Europeans love gold, gold is nothing in comparison to jade. Jade is so highly valued, even today. So we'll talk about, and so again, as you're thinking, as we're going through this episode today, think about, I just want you to understand why this is called the stone of heaven. So one, it had use, it had usage. There was usage. It had uses. There were things that you could do with jade other than just wear it. It was the Ginsu knife. Because jade is almost indestructible. I will say that again. Jade, more than any other gemstone, is nearly indestructible. So those of you like myself who bought the original Ginsu knife, the Ginsu knife is nothing in comparison to jade. So let's go over, let's do a little background. Of course, take out your notebooks. All right, give you a second. It's not going to be that complicated. We're just going to do a review of what we talked about before. So again, periodic table. And the reason why I show you this is because I want you to understand that, as I told you before, everything that's made in the universe is on that table. 118 elements. Notice I didn't say black, white. I didn't say Republican, Democrat. I didn't say North or South. I didn't say European versus South American. Everything that is around you, everything that exists on this earth is made out of those elements. So I want you to understand the playing field. I want us to be on the same page. Periodic table. And then last 2 weeks, we talked about isomorphic replacement, which means that you have a specific structure, and in that structure, elements are replaced, and whatever elements that replace it make the overall structure, in this case, the overall gemstone, interact with the light. And last week I told you that if that works, if that is the concept that gemstones work off of, as far as the different colors gemstone, we can extrapolate that back to us. Instead of elements, aluminum, magnesium, iron, those elements can be our thoughts. If you begin to replace those thoughts that are in your head, whether it be hopefully they're not positive thoughts, but if those negative thoughts in your head with positive thoughts, then you, as a gemstone, will interact with the light differently. We all know this. That's what this book talks about. As a man thinketh, what you think about, you bring about. So again, a gemstone is the simplest representation of some of the things that we have the capabilities to do. So isomorphous replacement. We talked about the coloring elements. These are the things that make all gemstones have their specific colors. And I went over vanadium, chromium, nickel, titanium, boron, and nitrogen, and diamonds, iron and copper, manganese, cobalt. That's it. These are the coloring elements that make all the gemstones, including jade, have their specific or different colors. So by virtue of that they are allochromatic, gemstones that can change colors by virtue of what's inside of them are allochromatic. And I asked you last week, or at least made you realize, that all of us are basically allochromatic. We have the ability to change who we are, the way we think, the way we function, the way we feel about ourselves, the way we feel about our bodies. If you want to lose weight, if you want your skin to be better, if you are growing older, you want things to function better, then you have to take in elements that are going to make you interact with the light differently. I'm 61 years old, 62, and God knows 2 months. I can't eat the way that I used to eat. McDonald's was wonderful. I was there in the beginning. I can't eat that anymore. And that's not a slight to McDonald's. It's just that those elements do not allow my body, my spirit, my energy to interact with the light. So I can't function the same way. I love Mountain Dew. I just can't do it anymore. Because I realize that I am allochromatic, in the same rules of science that exist for emeralds or peridot. Remember, peridot has the iron built in. Well, Mountain Dew is not a part of my DNA. Oh, I wish it was, but it's not. So I can't do that. Water is what I need. So before we go into Jade, the next step, or as we go into Jade, the next step is understanding the difference between a structure that is crystalline and a structure that is polycrystalline. And this is very important because a lot of people don't understand the difference. And this difference is what makes Jade the stone of heaven. A crystalline structure is something that has a regular repeating pattern. If you're sitting in your kitchen or in a room that has like a tile floor and you see the patterns, the squares, the circles, whatever it is in a repeating, that's a crystalline structure. It has a repeating pattern. A diamond is the perfect example of a crystalline structure. This is the structure. The molecular structure of diamond. It's a cubic structure. That's what crystalline is, a repeating pattern, which is one of the hallmarks of what it means to be a gemstone. Almost all gemstones are crystalline structures. Then we have what's called a polycrystalline. Polycrystalline is a gemstone or gem material that has a different arrangement. Look at the colors. The colors don't sit in a regular pattern. These blue molecules could have been anywhere, as it is here's purple, here's pink. So this is what a polycrystalline structure is. This is what jade is. Jade has a polycrystalline structure. So each piece of jade, like us, have a different structure. We have an overall basic direction, but each one of us have a different structure, a different orientation to who we are, to our skin, our hair, our eyes, our bodies. Why can't Michael Jordan do what Michael Jordan can do? Hey, I'm bald-headed, I'm black, I got 2 hands and 2 legs, 2 arms. But if someone gave me a basketball, I can't do what he does because his structure, his DNA, the way he was designed, I can't do that. Jade is like that. Jade has a polycrystalline structure, which is what makes it indestructible or virtually indestructible. So we're going to talk about, there's 2 types of jade. When most people think about jade, and it's amazing, as I was talking on Facebook, some of the posts, a lot of people were amazed that jade comes in different colors. Or first of all, that there's 2 types of jade. There's nephrite and then there's jadeite. And in the jewelry industry, we call it overarching jade. Nephrite. Nephrite is the jade that You see a lot. You see nephrite. Nephrite is very common. It's still rare, but it's very common. In fact, let's go back a second to understand the magnificence of jade. I told you that peridot, which again, in Jade X is the birthstone or a second birthstone for the month of August. But I told you that peridot and diamonds come from the same place on the earth, that it comes from the mantle, the hottest places other than the core of the earth. So diamonds are deeper, but peridot is found what's called in the upper mantle. So extreme heat and temperature. Jade is different. Jade is made from titanic forces. I'm talking about those of you who remember your high school science now. You're talking about plate tectonics, where literally continents, as you may or may not know, continents move. There used to be this thing called Pangea, where all the continents were one continent. You remember this? Well, when they move, sometimes, often, not often, but sometimes, often in terms of geological terms, millions and millions of years, but continents come into each other and they collide. And plate tectonics mean that one goes down and one goes over. And jade is made from those forces. So the reason why jade is rare is because those forces were not found everywhere. So the places that you find jade are the places where at once upon a time continents collided with each other. That's why you find them in China. That's why you find jade in Central and South America. That's why you find jade in some of the Pacific islands that were made from volcanoes. So you have titanic, monumental, incredible forces that make jade. And almost no other gemstone comes from those types of forces, except maybe like tanzanite. But we'll talk about that another day. So nephrite is the more common variety of jade. It is simply calcium, magnesium, silicate. And yes, you've heard that word silicate before, because silicates are the largest group of minerals on earth. Most of the earth that we walk on is silicate. So your gemstones, your peridot, your emeralds, your jade, all silicates. Okay, and there's a list of others. I won't get into this. So nephrite, calcium, magnesium, silicate with a little bit of hydroxy, which is OH. It has a hardness of 6.5. Remember that, a hardness of 6.5. And the toughness is excellent. Its excellence doesn't even come close to jade is the hardest. Jade is the toughest gemstone in the gemstone universe. So two things I want you to remember is that jade has a hardness of 6.5, or rather nephrite has a hardness of 6.5, and that nephrite and jadeite, therefore jade, is the most toughest gemstone of all the gemstones. Jadeite. Jadeite is the more rare form of jade. When you see gemstones or jade jewelry being sold for tens and thousands and millions of dollars, more than likely it's jadeite. It's extremely rare. Made up of something simple. Sodium. Yes, the same sodium that when you were eating your breakfast this morning and said, "Excuse me, honey, can you pass the salt?" That's sodium. Obviously, it's combined with something, because if you don't know, sodium by itself explodes and when in the presence of water or water vapor. You don't want to just hold sodium in your hand. So sodium, aluminum, silicate. It has a slightly harder level of hardness, which is a 7. Toughness, extremely hard, even though nephrite is actually harder than jadeite, and we'll talk about that. So nephrite is lower. Let me say it again. Nephrite has a lower hardness than jadeite, but nephrite is harder, is tougher than jadeite. Nephrite, lower hardness, higher toughness. Jadeite, higher hardness, lower toughness. Slight lower. It's still virtually indestructible. Nephrite, jadeite is more valuable than nephrite. And also, I didn't go into the colors. Nephrite has about 3 or 4 colors. That's why the green that you see, white, some brownish colors, that's more nephrite. Whereas jadeite, it comes in other colors, but the more colors that you see, most of the really brilliant colors that you see in jade are jadeite, if it's not dyed or synthetic in some kind of way. This is an important concept, and we actually spoke about this before. A lot of people don't really understand the difference between hardness and toughness. And this is one of the ways that you can use gemstones as an analogy for your own life, especially if you're in business. But we're going to talk about more of that on the other side. All right, we're back. A lot of people always, at least I hear it all the time, that people always saying that I'm a diamond, I'm a diamond, I'm a diamond. I want to, and again, we talked about this network is the diamond factor expand. And there's nothing wrong. Diamonds are incredible. And as I told you, diamonds are incredible because not only are they allochromatic, they're idiochromatic, meaning that what they are is what they are, and they're highly valued for just what they are. Diamonds are only made out of carbon. But what people don't understand is when they take diamonds, and as I tell you all the time, if you in gemstone, if you only look at one characteristic, you're already wrong. So hardness versus toughness. We talked about the mole scale. Some of you remember this from science. So it goes from 1, which is talc, like talcum powder, something how it's extremely soft, all the way to diamond. And we know, most of us know, that diamonds is the hardest natural known substance, a 10. And just want to let you know, these numbers don't go, even though they go 1, 2, 3, 4, it's really more exponential. So the difference between 9, let's say 9 is here, 9, it wouldn't be 7, 8, 9, it would be 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 is a whole, like literally 20 times the difference between what a 9 is and a 10. So we know this. Hardness, you can write this down. Hardness is a surface property. Hardness talks about the outside, the external property of a gemstone. Hardness is the ability of a material to resist scratching or abrasion. Abrasion is rubbing it over and over. So that's why the test for diamonds is nothing can scratch a diamond other than another diamond. That's hardness. So when you're a gemologist, or some jewelers do it as well, without damaging the jewelry, but when you're a gemologist and you're appraising a gemstone, one of the tests I do is the hardness test. Is this gemstone, if this gemstone is a sapphire and the sapphire has a hardness of 9, then I should not be able to scratch it with anything other than something that's a 10. 7, 6, 5, 4 won't scratch a sapphire because it's a 9. So hardness is the ability for a material to resist scratching or abrasion. Now, toughness is different. And when I really thought about how profound this is, it amazed me. Toughness is a property of the body, is the actual structure of what it is. So toughness is the ability of a material to resist fracture or cleavage. And this is the reason why, again, toughness, the ability to resist fracture or cleaver, meaning that if you hit it, it won't break, it won't cleave, or various degrees. So when you compare a diamond with jade, people are talking about being a diamond, especially this really relates to business. And I've done workshops all over the world where people say, oh, I want my business to be a diamond. I want to shine like a diamond. And that's beautiful. That's wonderful. But if you're going to use an analogy of a gemstone, then you have to take in all the characteristics of that gemstone. And the thing about a diamond is, because it has a specific crystalline structure, that means that when you hit a diamond, it breaks, it cleaves all the way through. Any one of you, any ladies especially, if you have a gemstone and you know that if you hit that diamond across a table, a wall, a door, whatever, that diamond will break. I see it all the time. That diamond breaks is because diamonds are brittle. You hit a diamond in the wrong way. In fact, that's how diamonds are cut. You have a guy who is a diamond cutter and he's an expert. He may take days, weeks, months, sometimes a couple of years, ones that are, the huge 200, 300, 400 carat diamonds, just to decide how he's going to hit it, how it's going to cleave, and to be able to make other diamonds, or at least fashion the diamond that he wants to make in the perfect shape or symmetry. Jade, because it's a polycrystalline structure, you can hit jade all day long. Nothing will happen to jade. Nothing. Because it has that polycrystalline structure. So if you hit jade, then that jade will, you may see a scratch, but that's it. It's not going to break all the way through. That's why jade was used for weapons. Nobody had, unless they were ceremonial sword, nobody had a diamond sword. Why? Not because it costs a whole lot and it's hard to find, but because diamonds can break. You can be bad as all you want. Hey, I got a diamond sword. Yeah, okay, cool. Oh, shoot, it broke. That's what diamonds do. But jade doesn't do that. So if you're in a business and you're using diamond as your business, as a testimony, if you're using diamond as a testimony to your brightness, to the way you interact with the light and the rainbow and all the colors, diamonds are cool. Diamonds are wonderful. There is nothing that has the type of what's called light performance, a scintillation. When you move a diamond and the diamond's coming to, nothing has that. That is why diamonds are diamonds. But if you're using gemstones as an analogy for your business, if you were, I don't know, a business, you own a safe company, or let's say some cyber security company, you don't want to use a diamond, you want to use jade, because jade is tough. Think about the analogy that you can have. Jade, even though when you look at jade, jade doesn't look tough. Ladies, I'm talking to you. Ladies, that we men make the mistake of thinking, oh, well, she's pretty and she's soft. And no, so is jade. But yet jade is the toughest gemstone. That's the difference. That's jade. Look how creamy it looks. Look how soft it looks. It just look, when you wear jade, jade is a cooling stone. Jade, when you touch jade on your skin, because of the molecular structure, jade's temperature is actually lower. So in fact, one of the tests to see if your jade is real, you take obviously I don't have any hair, but if I had hair, you take a strand of hair and put it over the jade, and you take a lighter, and the hair won't burn because the jade is so cool, it won't allow the hair to burn. But yet, jade is the toughest. Look how beautiful. That's jadeite. That's a jadeite necklace. Bai is when we talk about the stone of heaven, Bai is a cultural symbol found in Asia, all throughout Asia, that was for thousands of years. I'm talking about 7,000-8,000 of years ago. And Bai is the wheel. It's a flat disc. And that symbolizes heaven. And most of the Bai that you see, this is nephrite. This is nephrite. And one of the reasons why jade is used in throughout Asia as a symbol, because of all the different varieties that jade comes in. Jade is not, because it's allochromatic, because it uses different elements to have different colors. You have buys that are different colors. And what makes those buys so extremely valuable is because jade is almost indestructible. So what you're looking at, even though it looks simple, this is extremely difficult to do. Because what you do, you can't cut through jade. You can't hit jade and it breaks. You have to, because of its relative softness in regards to the level, let me say, because of its low hardness level, 6.5 for nephrite, 7 for jadeite. What the artisans would have to do is to use abrasive type of materials, and just rub it over. I mean, eventually, once they started using diamond cloths and diamond wheels, then it was a little bit easier. But because of the toughness of jade, to make a buy is extremely difficult. There's museums. There's a wonderful museum right here in Illinois. And I'll show you pictures of it next week, of how many, you're looking at countless hours of work, months, maybe years of work to create that perfect symmetry. And look at it. This is without computer. This is not CGI. This is not basically CAD technology. This is a man or a woman, but of course, those days, most men did it, just literally eyeballing and taking the time to create this perfect wheel. Again, the stone of heaven. Look how beautiful that is. And one of the things that Asian cultures appreciate, not just Asian cultures, I need you to understand. In fact, here's a little history. In China, most of the jade that you see is nephrite, and it was already highly valued. Jadeite is really only found for the most part in Central America and Burma, of course, but hundreds of years ago, jade was found in Central America and in Mexico. So when the Spanish conquistadors, the Europeans knew about nephrite, of course, Marco Polo, all the guys that went to China, came back, they brought back nephrite. And they thought nephrite was just, wow, this is wonderful. This is incredible. But then when the Spanish conquistadors, 15th, 16th century, started going to Central America, and they saw the people there walking around with this green stone on their hip, because, and I can't say the Spanish word, but the word for jade started in the name for jade started in Spain, or literally Mexico and Central America, and then the Spanish called it some name, and I'll get the pronunciation. I don't want to mess up the pronunciation. But then when it came to Europe, it was the Spanish, and more importantly, the French, not more importantly, but the French named it Pierre de Jade, where the word jade comes from. But the reason why the Spanish, the Central American people would wear jade on their hip, because one of the properties of jade, they believed, was to heal the kidneys in your inner organs. So when the conquistadors came to Central America looking for gold, of course, they saw the people having gold, of course, but they saw how they treasured the jade. And the conquistadors was like, what's that? And they was like, this is jade. In fact, you know what? All that gold you can take. I mean, we don't want you to take the gold, but if we made it, they have to make a choice, take the gold, because jade meant so much to them. And then when the supplies of jade ran out in Central America, then it came somehow. The Asians, of course, travel exploration. When Asian cultures found out about jadeite, they had nephrite. When they found out about jadeite, they went insane. They was like, oh my God, this is even better than the stuff that we've had for thousands of years. And what I want you to understand is the only reason why they felt the same way about it is because of the story. Someone told them a story. People told them a story. That's where a lot of the exploration of the world happened, because they weren't going just because it was more sunnier. They didn't go because of a whole bunch of reasons. They didn't just get on a ship and just travel across an ocean that took months and hard, hazardous to literally find where this stone is, dig it up. And then, of course, like I said, this is a virtually indestructible stone. So how many decades did it take for them to even try to fashion it? The Asian cultures had it, or they at least had a better idea. But the reason why they went is because they understood the story. Imagine how you can use that in your life. What being able to establish a story, whether it be your business, whether it be your brand, whether it be who you are, that is what people will remember about you. That's the power of stories. This disc right here is 7,000 years old. Look at it. 7,000 years old. And it looks pretty much exactly the same as it did 7,000 years ago. These are some of the different colors. We're still talking about nephrite. Nephrite, again, comes in white, brown, green. Nephrite. This is the stone jade, the stone of heaven. These are all the colors that jade comes in. Look at it. Take a look at it. Those of you who thought green was the only color jade, sorry. Jade comes in a variety of amazing different colors. Look at it. They come in different translucent, how you can see through it. They have different textures. This is all jade. And the people, the lapidaries who I say cut jade, but who work with jade, who create jade, has to maximize those colors, that texture. Green jade, and each type of gemstone, each type of jade has a certain color, certain property. Green jade is health and abundance. These are stones you want to sleep in, because literally jade is actually a stone of abundance. That's why my student's grandmother gives her jade, because she wants her to have an abundant life. She wants her to be healthy. It's good health to give someone jade, green jade in particular. Green is the most valuable jade. You have black jade. Black jade, protection. It clears negative energy. If you got somebody in your life who is negative, black jade. Lavender jade, high spiritual attunement, compassion and serenity. Look at the color. Imagine wearing that. It provides spiritual nourishment to all who touch it or gaze on it. This is what people believe. Red jade, which is my favorite. When I discovered that there was red, I like red, obviously. I like red jade. I like red. So red jade is for courage. Similar to what rubies, that color, red, gives courage for overcoming adversity, changing aspects of oneself, not that when you're not aligned or in tune with your spiritual nature. So when you give someone red jade, This is what they're saying to you. This is what the gift that they're giving you. Purple jade. Humor, spiritual knowledge, and attunement. Letting you lighten up. Let you just chill out. Relax. How wonderful would it be to have purple jade? And now, in these days, with all this virus and weather and climate change, purple jade. Isn't it funny how things that they had thousands of years ago are still useful today? It's not just the gemstones, it's the story. And then, of course, the most rare, the most valuable is blue and actually, green and lavender jade, but the most rare is blue jade. Spiritual knowledge, clear thinking and discrimination, being able to know, your BS meter. Yeah, blue jade helps that. Keeping a cool head when everything else is going on crazy around you. Blue jade. And the reason why I went through that is because think about what As a Man Thinketh says. Very soon, so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become sort of out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life, and a garment is cast aside. And with the growth of opportunity which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. So the thing about gemstones, it's not whether or not they actually have those powers within them. The thing about gemstones, not just about jade, but all the gemstones, is what you believe they have. That's what it's about. That's what the power, and to me, the power of having a gemstone that comes from different places in the world, and everybody, different cultures, races, religions, believe and feel pretty much the same thing about that gemstone is amazing to me. Think about how many thousands, millions of people have lived in China, lived in Australia, lived in Africa, lived in Europe, lived in Central America, lived in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, never met each other. Completely different races, believing, religions, everything else. But when you give them jade, they understand. The thought is isomorphic replacement. In every gemstone is that. That's why I believe the story has lasted as long as it is. Because the most powerful thing that you can do in your life is understand and know a story. And when you understand how that works, how stories work, then you can change your life. This every week when I come on this show, this is a promise that I made to God when I was homeless. When I was homeless and I had absolutely nothing. You need to understand that the person you look at each week slept in dumpsters, slept in garbage cans. I'm not even going to tell you what I ate and everything else in that time. But what I learned is when I changed my thoughts, my life changed. And I made a promise to God that if I ever got out of this situation, that I would spend the rest of my life helping people discover their value. I had no idea how I was going to do it. Stories is the only way you get to understand value. So again, my name is Barry B. Mixon. I hope you enjoyed this show. I am a gemological storyteller. And as I ask you each week, and I hopefully gave you another reason to take time in your life, in your day, to look around at yourself, look in the mirror, and begin to discover the value. of your own stories. So until I see you next week, au revoir, atatella, see you later.